Well, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, the 14th of May. It is great to be with you this morning. And as Barry said yesterday, I've realized that we often say that same thing, that it's great to be with you, but it really has been a joy to dive into the scriptures together. What I've loved, and I've been thinking about that when Barry shared it yesterday, and it got me thinking that when we think as a church, as a community, as a group of believers, we have met more often during COVID-19 through technology than we have post pre-COVID-19, sorry, should I say. And that is what I've loved, that even when we think that at a time like this where we've had to follow things such as extreme social distancing and all that kind of stuff, that we've still been able to use technology to meet together. And I've loved that. And I've loved that instead of seeing this thing as a hindrance and a burden, that we've been able to use it as a way to build each other up, as a way to share the gospel with those around us. And I want to encourage you, hopefully you're still doing that. Hopefully, as Barry shared yesterday, that we're using this not as or we don't see this as sort of a hindrance, but we are seeing this time as an opportunity to share and spread the gospel because we have this time to do it. And this morning, we continue our journey going through the book of Philippians. I've loved again just doing this. And so, looking at it this morning, we're going to start kind of tag teaming on from each other, Barry and myself. And I wanted to kind of pick up a little bit of what he was saying yesterday and then see what Paul's response is and how we can see what Paul is teaching us and what Christ is teaching us through the scriptures. And so you'll remember Barry was sharing yesterday that Paul had obviously been imprisoned, and he's using this as an opportunity to go and share the gospel. And just saying, feeling sorry for some of those guards that must have been with him in these four-hour stints to guard him, almost getting the point going, I can't wait to get away because if I hear the gospel again, maybe I might believe in it. And seeing these guys just getting exposed fully to the gospel. But then when you continue to read after that, and I'd really encourage you to do that, is to continue to read from verses 15 to about 18, and you actually see Paul, I wouldn't say he breaks down. We don't see him breaking down at all. We see him staying quite strong here in prison, which I think in itself is an amazing thing, is an amazing testimony. But he starts seeing that he realizes that some people are going and preaching and sharing the gospel, the good news, because they understand what he's doing and they have this love for Paul and this love for what he's doing and they want to partner with him and continue the good work. And there's others that are doing it for selfish gain. And he even gets to the point saying that some people are doing it, and I think it's about verse 18, that some people are doing it to make his change, to make his imprisonment almost, rub it in his face a little bit. And he gets to the point when you think about if anybody could ever have been depressed, firstly, he's in prison, and now he's realizing that people are going ahead and preaching in a way that's actually rubbing it in his face that he's in prison and they're not. Paul had every single right to be depressed. But he's not. He's excited about where he is because he sees this opportunity for what he's able to do. He sees this opportunity, as Barry was sharing with us yesterday, to be in Caesar's court, to be in Caesar's house, and to share the gospel with some very powerful and influential people in the time. And so we never realize what God is taking us and where he's taking us and giving us opportunity to share the gospel. We have just got to be obedient to that and be faithful in that. And that brings us great joy. But that's not what I wanted to share with this morning. That's kind of just a bit of an introduction to where I'm wanting to go. And when we look at what I wanted to share this morning, I want to kind of pick up quickly from verses about 20 to 25. And there's one specific verse that I want to read, but I would encourage you to kind of read all of them together. And even if you've got to go back and kind of read what we've done already and just read the verses and see where we're going with this, that would be great. And I wanted to pick this up quickly. So let's just read, and so it'll be two verses, sorry. So let's just read them quickly. Reading from verse 20. For I fully expect and hope that I will never, ever be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ as I've been in the past. And I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ, whether I live or die. For me to live means living for Christ, and dying is even better. And so I know my Bible's phrase it in a different way, but maybe you remember that saying as for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. And we start thinking about that here Paul is even continuing in this letter while he's in prison. So remember, he's in prison. We've got to keep reminding ourselves of that he's in prison, and it's not a nice place that he's in. It's like dungeons, and it's just miserable place that he is in. And here he even says that I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed. He's hoping never to be ashamed, but that he will continue to be bold for Christ. That no matter where he is, he will continue to be bold for Christ. And so remember, I was sharing a couple of days ago when we started this, that sometimes Paul comes across as a bit arrogant and self-righteous and that kind of stuff in his writings. And I know some people have looked at it and said, that's a little bit, arrogant. Sorry. To say that he will continue to be bold in Christ. I don't think that's arrogant at all. I think that's Paul grasping on to what and who Christ is in his life. And I trust that my life will bring honor to God. And he's trusting that everything that he does is not going to honor himself. It's not going to do like, hey, look how cool I am as Paul. That while I'm in prison and sharing the gospel and doing this, look how great I am. No, he's saying everything I do points right back to Christ. Everything I do and say points right back to Christ. I'm in prison. I'm with these guards, and I'm pointing all the time back to Christ. And he gets to the point, and it's a very famous line, that for me, living means living for Christ, but dying is even better. And when we think about that in the time that we're in currently, and maybe we're sitting in a place where we've kind of got to the point where we're all a little bit afraid, and it's kind of, we're getting a little bit over this. We saw our president speak last night, kind of indicating the potential of moving into stage 3 of the lockdown at the end of the month, depending on what the virus infection rate is in the different areas. Or maybe we're seeing things such as some of the laws that are being passed at the moment, and kind of getting to the point going, I'm over this. It's just, actually, I'm a believer. Take me home. I just want to go into heaven. It's a much better place. I won't have to worry about all this kind of stuff. And Paul, in a place in prison, gets to the point when you read further on where he actually says, I am torn between the two. I'm torn between living here on earth and sharing the gospel and doing this good work that God has called me to, or to be going home to be with God. It's a place that, I don't know if you, but I think many of us at some time have found ourselves in, that we torn between these two. But Paul shows us what we need to do, that no matter what, we need to continue living our lives in such a way that we bring glory and honor to God. And so again, I want to say it, and you've heard both me and Barry, and I think, I don't want to say what John has been saying the most, but I know I've been hammering on about this. It's about character. Paul is saying, it's like, my character is going to be one of that points everything to Christ. Everything that I do and say is going to be pointing people to Christ. Everything that I do and say is going to be gospel-centered, Christ-focused. And so we got to live our lives like that. We got to live our lives that no matter what we're going through, no matter what trial we're facing, no matter what tribulation we're facing, there's an old word for me to use, no matter what we're using or going through, that we need to be gospel-centered, Christ-focused. That we need to be centering on the gospel, but focused on Christ. And looking at all of that and kind of pushing forward and saying, for me to live as Christ, to die as gain. And I know that sounds strange, and maybe you're listening to this, and maybe you're somebody who's well on in years, and you're kind of going, yes, but I've been through so much. I was reading something the other day which I found quite interesting, that there's very few, but there's a generation out there that at the moment has lived through a world war, has lived through the Great Depression, has lived through some massive things, and now they're living again through COVID-19. And when we start thinking about that, the world is going to look at us as the church and saying they're going to judge us for how we respond to how we've dealt with this crisis. And I think that is what Paul is kind of teaching us here, not about COVID-19, but about to live is Christ, to die is gain. To live as Christ, we need to share the message wherever we can. We need to use whatever platform we can to share the message. And it doesn't matter what people say about us. It doesn't matter if people defriend us on Facebook or leave groups or anything like that. But we need to really, really, really continue to share the gospel wherever ever we are. So hopefully you find that encouraging this morning, and that no matter what we're going through, we've seen there's great heroes in the faith that have gone through it before, and they continue to say, live your life in such a way that brings glory and honor to Christ.